I want to share my experience and reflection and perspective on Hurricane Helene here that just came through western North Carolina, and I've lived here for the last 12 years and want to share my firsthand experience. And I was extra motivated to make this video once I started to see significant amounts of misinformation spread around on social media. So, going to tell a little bit of the story here, and we'll cut away to some clips from my yard and the nearby area. So it started with a Chart Guys meetup that weekend, and about a dozen to 15 people did actually fly into town for this storm. And two of them, Chart Guys Rav and his wife, were staying with me from the UK. And leading up, started to get word. They used to call me Weatherman Dan in high school because I was always watching the news, the weather, and predicting snowstorms for snow days and things like that. And of course, becoming a farmer, always watching the weather. So could see 3 days in advance that this had the chance to be significant, knew that, it could always shift, but this may be very serious. And, made a post on Facebook saying, clear your gutters, this could be serious. And then once we got 24 hours out and the prognosis got worse, and they started using the word unprecedented, before they were comparing it to 2001 and then 1916 and then unprecedented. And so that for me was very significant in the sense that it's less than 24 hours. It's high probability that that is going to happen. And so with where I'm at, I've got a bunch of creeks and ponds in my front yard, but we had a pretty bad storm in 2021, and the house was all right, and I improved the culverts and things like that in the meantime, so thought that it would be good to go. So the night before, definitely knots in my stomach, anxiety, knowing what was coming. We were out to eat at a Mexican diner when the heavy rain started and just was not feeling good, and woke up that morning at 3 a.m. And the worst of it was supposed to be 2 to 6 a.m., and it ended up being about 8 to 10 a.m., and that's a blessing, because if it were pitch black, I think a lot more people would have died. People being able to see was definitely a huge help, obviously. And so I can remember feeling completely helpless, looking out my window, literally just staring. There's nothing else to do. I've done my preparations. I'm literally just staring at the rain and knowing that it's going to keep coming. And I knew the timeline that, the worst of it's going to be 9 a.m. and kept getting little blips of service. But for the most part, power's out, internet's out, cell phone service is out. And so then the big winds hit at 9 a.m. or so. And because the ground was so soggy, just the trees were falling over one after the other. I feel like the majority of the trees in my yard, 8+ of them, all fell within what felt like 30 minutes, just really compact because of those heavy winds. And you could see the path through my yard where the wind knocked down the trees coming through and then went around the house. Fortunately, didn't get any flooding. The waters did rise pretty high, as you can see, and it became, all the individual creeks and ponds just became one thing, one big river. And I lucked out big time. A tree fell right next to the barn and scraped it. The big one next to the house could have fallen in the other direction and hit the house, but overall, very fortunate. And so the storm then stops, and it's kind of numbing. All the birds are pumped and out and about, exploring the new landscape. And it's almost like you think it's over, where you're like, okay, I've survived this, everything's okay. And it doesn't sink in for a solid 24 hours that how bad it is, because, being within it and with no internet service or anything like that, had no idea how widespread it was and how massive it was. And then, of course, knowing, okay, now's the challenge of persevering under foreign conditions that we're not used to. We get so accustomed to turning the faucet and water comes out. And so you may have seen from a previous video, Dan's plan when it hits the fan. I'm talking about market crashes, but at the end, I also talk about being a little bit of a prepper and the steps that I was taking to prepare for whatever takes place. And of course, since then, COVID and now this, definitely I'm doubling down on everything, because I don't think it's going to go away in terms of over the next few decades. But it was hysterical because 7 Chart Guys members walked down my driveway 2 hours after the rain stopped, and the waters had just receded enough to walk across my driveway. And there they were, some of them in flip-flops, and walked up and, how can we help? I'm standing there dumbfounded. I don't know. I've got some shovels. What? It's just so daunting a task. And, they're in excited adventure mode and I'm in exhausted disaster mode. I've been up since 3 a.m. And so they're like, can we drive? We want to drive around and look at stuff, or, are we doing the sauna tomorrow? And it was just, we said hello, and then 20 minutes later they left. And I think after that they realized, oh shit, this is a really big deal. We need to get out of here while we still can. And so most of them dispersed to Charlotte. And I ended up driving Rob and his wife back to Charlotte on Saturday, I think it was. Friday was the day everything hit. And I had enough gas, fortunately, and that was by luck. I did not gas up before in anticipation. I just had luck that I had a full tank. And so I was able to get them to Charlotte, 2 hours and 20 minutes away. We had to go a bunch of different routes, not the usual way, because roads were closed. One of the main highways, Highway 40, was closed. And so took them a long way, but got there. And fortunately, because no gas station had power or gas for just about 2 hours of driving. And, the one or two that did had obviously a mob scene with tons of lines in all directions. And so got them to Charlotte. Charlotte was fine. Charlotte's a big city, way bigger than Asheville. And it was so surreal to come out of what I just went through, and everybody's just drinking coffee and smiling and laughing, and everything is completely normal. And so I got a shower at my buddy's house because I've still got no power service water at home. And then went to Home Depot and just loaded up. And some other people had started there, like they didn't have any of a certain kind of cooler, or they didn't have the gas canisters. But I was able to get, go to the grocery and get a bunch of water and food, big gallons of water, and then went to Home Depot, got a much better chainsaw, got a coolers with ice, and just a bunch of things, clip bars and everything people could utilize. And then went back into it. And, with what I have prepped for, I'm good to go for like 5 months without any foraging or growing my own food. So I was very comfortable with the lack of power and internet and water because of the creek outside. I've got these filters that will last me months and months and months where I just scoop creek water and I can then drink it. And I was unprepared for how unprepared my neighbors were. And so my 5 months of food in reality would have been like a month or less, because I'm not just going to hoard it and watch everybody die. But after 2 days, some neighbors were starting to get pretty nervous because they didn't have gas in their car and they were down to the end of their water and food. And so I was just going through my cupboards and like making little food drops in the mornings and water drops, because it was such an experience to go from the most anxiety and stress that I've felt in my life in the last decade plus, as long as I can remember, whatever, to going to absolute euphoria, driving my little ride-on mower, pulling a wagon full of water and food just from house to house around the neighborhood, and how pumped everybody was. It was just, there's no better high than helping people in that way. And so I was just doing that, and they would get, these people would give me some fruit, and I gave them water, and I'd take the fruit to the other people. And the amount of speed at which these good old boys with chainsaws jumped out into the road and cleared it after the initial storm happened, and the amount of camaraderie and brotherhood and love and support the community was showing. I'm just speaking to my neighborhood right now. That's all I was experiencing. It was very powerful, and we were all in lifted spirits because of it, obviously given the context as much as we could be. And so when I see these posts now that are being spread around and getting a lot of traction saying, my son is in North Carolina, my friend is, and then just saying something like 1,000 bodies were pulled yesterday, or, people getting shot over gasoline and things are getting feral down there. I literally saw someone use the word feral, and it made me angry, because my faith in humanity has never been higher than in this last week, and what I've experienced and watched people do. And there was never anything negative, never anybody stressed and snapping. I'm sure that was going on, but I didn't see it. And everybody just wanting to know how they can help and digging out each other's driveways and just chainsaws. And you have to remember that, Asheville is very liberal. So you got the hippies and queers, and then all around you've got the Republicans and Trumpers. And in this moment, none of that mattered whatsoever. It was the last thing on anybody's mind. And it's just so crazy to see people from the outside right now trying to spread a divisive spin on this thing when it literally was the most, I can't think of enough good words, empowering, inspirational, just every good word of what humans can do has been on full display here. And then I thought, okay, I'm in a limited experience. I'm sticking around, I'm conserving my gas. I'm sticking around to these neighborhoods near me. But then when I get service and get on Facebook, I see literally it's all of my friends saying the same thing, and no one is saying anything different. And this is dozens and dozens of people spread out through the town, spread out through the small towns, and in the community living situations and all these different walks of life in this area, and everybody is saying the same thing of what I just said. And so don't, any source that you hear that is putting a negative spin on this thing is not to be trusted. And where we stand right now, there's still definitely people stranded. The smaller cities, I mean, some of them, these towns, their roads are literally gone, and it's going to be months before they're back. And people are not going to have water for over a month in some places, and even electricity. Myself and 4 neighbors nearby got electricity after a few days, and there's a sweet old woman 200 yards away that still doesn't have it yet at this point, and it's been out twice as long, and that's just because of the way the lines are and our proximity to certain transformers or whatever. But this is far from over, and it's going to take a lot of time rebuilding. But again, the way the community bands together and the powerful energy that comes from that, it is significant. Not downplaying the tragedy, but I'm almost excited to see what this turns into, because it has such momentum. And so, again, if you're going to support, beloved Asheville is one of the nonprofits that I've have experience with in the past, over just seeing that they're doing good things in the community and knowing that, okay, I don't have to do a bunch of research. I can just donate to these people and know that it's going to a good place, and they're out and about and doing it again. So that is the one place that I can suggest donations from personal experience. And it's a long road ahead. I'm very grateful for where I'm at, and glad to be an asset and be able to help some people along the way. Could have definitely done more. I learned lessons along the way. I need more candles. I'll be the guy out with the chainsaw in the street in the first 20 minutes next time. I was still dumbfounded this time around. But yeah, it's an experience that we will all learn from, and I'm going to share what my prepping mindset is and how I'm doing things, just so others can potentially benefit. And I'll put a video out specific to that sometime in the near future. But again, the moral of the story is something terrible happened, and there's a lot of sadness surrounding that, but also a lot of hope in all the positive things that I have mentioned, and love. There's so much love going around during this all, and I hope that you all feel that someday. No, that's a terrible thing to say. You know what I mean. Do good things.